Hello and welcome to Kurious City. My name is Letty and I'm one of the co-founders of Kurious Arts. This is a podcast all about encouraging people to get curious about what's going on creatively across the city. I will be talking to a collection of individuals and organisations and companies that are making an impact, and it's all about trying to encourage you to get off the sofa and get out into the world. Let's have a listen to who we're talking to today. Hello everybody, I am delighted to say that with me in the studio today we have got debut novelist Russ Thomas. Hello Russ.
Hi Letty.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I want to talk to you today about you and all the things that make you tick, but I also want to talk to you about Firewatching, which is your debut novel, but there is another one coming. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Indeed.
Which is set in Sheffield.
Yes.
And it's going to be published on the 20th of Feb, so any minute now.
Yeah.
By Simon Schuster.
Now.
Schuster? Is that how you say that?
Yes.
Schuster.
Yeah, Simon Schuster.
Right, so I am guessing from the excellent quote on your website from Mr. Lee Childs, which he's saying, a pitch-perfect blend of the best of the old and the best of the new, a fresh and relevant 21st century edge. I mean, that's pretty great, isn't it?
Yeah, it was amazing. Lee Child's a bit of a hero of mine.
Yes, and you've read every single one of his books.
Yeah, every single one. Absolutely adore his work. So it was unbelievable because it was the first quote we got as well, the first one that came back.
Gosh.
So it was, I
bet you did a little dance, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I would have done. So tell us about Firewatching.
Okay, yeah, Firewatching. It's a crime police procedural set in Sheffield.
Good.
It starts with a body that's found bricked up in the cellar of a country mansion, so sort of just on the edge of the Peak District. And the body is assumed to be that of the house's former owner, who went missing 6 years ago. And my hero, Adam Tyler, DS Adam Tyler, is called in. He's a cold case specialist.
Okay.
And he is called in to try and work out what's going on. Unfortunately, he discovers quite quickly that he's compromised and he has a connection to somebody involved in the case. So obviously the right thing to do is to declare his interest, come clean, and get bumped off the case, but he has reasons for not doing that.
Oh, it sounds so intriguing. What's he like, Adam?
He's a bit difficult. He's the lone member of the South Yorkshire Cold Case Unit. He isn't really expected to get results. He's been put there because of an altercation he had with another officer. Okay, so he's a bit of a dangerous lone wolf type. Yeah. He doesn't mix well. He doesn't play well with others, shall we say? Okay. And
that's interesting because you actually describe yourself as a gregarious loner. Now,
Did I?
I loved that because I thought, what does a gregarious what does that mean?
Well, I suppose I love being around people, but I also love spending time on my own, and it depends what mood you get me in on any particular day, which of those two people you get.
Would you say you're kind of all or nothing, so you could go for a whole day on your own and be perfectly happy, but then suddenly think, actually, I've got to go and see someone now?
Definitely, yeah. And obviously now I'm a full-time writer. That happens more often than it used to, and it's taken some getting used to. And I think it's only through that I've realised how much I do crave being around other people as well. Yeah. So it's been a steep learning curve the last year or so, I think. So
you now, when people say, what do? Do you say, I'm a writer?
I do.
How does that feel?
It's surreal, a bit strange.
But you've always written, haven't you? You've written since you were a child.
Yeah, I do. But I still feel a bit apologetic about it. I still feel like it's like,
sorry,
I should be explaining.
I'm a writer.
No, I suppose I've been describing myself as a writer for a while, but now I'm actually being paid for it. So it
feels legitimate.
It does feel like, an easy way to say.
So how did you go from, I mean, I know that you worked in Waterstones. You've always loved books and you've always read. You've been a voracious reader, and you cite everybody from Agatha Christie to Barbara Kinsolver, you're inspired by a kind of eclectic range of writers and authors.
Yeah, I think most authors probably are. I would imagine you won't find many writers, even if they do tend to write one particular genre or type of fiction. That's not to say that's the only thing they read. People read far and wide.
Yeah.
And I would encourage anyone who wants to be a writer to do exactly that. I mean, that's how you learn. You just read as much as possible. And that includes other forms of narrative as well, non-fiction.
I'm not very good at reading non-fiction. I should do that. But I read a lot of plays.
Yeah. Going to see things, watching TV dramas.
Yeah,
it's all part of it.
All part and parcel.
Yeah. You can justify it now.
Can you remember what, when you discovered reading, can you remember the first book that made an impact on you or made you think, I want to do this, I want to...
I can remember reading Danny the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl.
Such a cracking book.
Yeah, and I just remember being obsessed with this idea of poisoning pheasants and watching them drop out of trees.
Hit the Peak Districts in search of a pheasant.
No, I wasn't that kind of kid. But yeah, so that I mean, I read a lot of Roald Dahl, I suppose, at that age. Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim as well, I remember reading. Do you know that
I don't
one?
know that. I know Roald Dahl.
Fantastic book. It was made into a film as well when I was a kid, so maybe that was my introduction to it. But
yeah, and then you read, but did you write when you were that age?
Yes, but in a very small way. I used to write stories and rubbish poems and things.
Yeah. Bet they weren't rubbish.
I found some the other day, actually, and they are terrible.
Get them on your website. I want to read them.
No way. They're probably on social media somewhere. I think I took a photo at the time.
Yeah. I'm interested in what that transition from writing. So you describe a kind of, at one point you talk about the loneliness and the isolation of being a writer and missing those water cooler moments. So that implies that you worked in a variety of other jobs, and I've since discovered they included pot washing. I've got a list here. It's excellent. Optician's receptionist, supermarket warehouse operative, call centre, and a storage salesman. The last one, how does that work? Do you just say, hello, please may you buy this cupboard?
Yeah, oh no. So most of those were pretty short-term things as well. But yeah, the storage place was in one of those storage facilities where you go and hire a room and then you can put all your belongings in it. Oh,
like the big yellow box thing?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And it mostly involved trying to upsell people space and make them have more space than they needed, trying to sell them insurance, and then painting and cleaning.
Do you think
all the time
those things informed your writing, being in those places?
I've often thought I should write something set in a self-storage place because it was fascinating. It was strange and used to meet some very interesting people.
What did they put in there?
Well, we didn't pay too much close attention to that.
Oh, Russ, perhaps you should have done.
Yeah. No, you couldn't always tell. Mostly it was people moving house and things like that, but you did have some characters and some strange things.
So what changed? So you were doing sort of bits and bobs and then... Well,
I mean, all that was kind of just earning a living, really.
While you were writing?
Yeah. And then at that particular time I was planning to go travelling, and it was just a short job I had to tide me over until I went travelling. And then I did go travelling eventually, but it was 2 years later. So I ended up staying there a lot longer than I intended to.
Where did you go travelling?
I went round the world for a year.
I just went round the world.
I won't list everywhere, but yeah, it was great. It was epic.
And then you wrote your book in Sheffield, about Sheffield. I love that.
I came back. Yeah,
I've seen everything else. No, Sheffield's still the one.
I think at first I struggled to set it in Sheffield because it's quite hard to write about a place that you know really well when you're living there. I think it's actually easier to
Imagine
remember other places, and
Okay.
because you don't notice things, do you? It's a bit like the pictures on your wall at home. You don't notice them on a daily basis. You know what they are and you know they're there, but you don't see them.
Yeah, it's only if one of them's missing one day or it falls off the wall or anything.
So, but I persevered because I knew by that point I was writing a police series, and I wanted it to be set somewhere that I knew well, so that I could use that experience to flesh it out and to make it feel real. So,
And I think I remember, it's going to be really embarrassing if I've got this wrong, but I seem to remember you telling me at a book launch, or maybe in Waterstones or something.
oh God, how drunk was I?
No, not as drunk as I was. But I think you said that this manuscript was in a drawer for 7 years.
It probably wasn't in a drawer for that long, but I originally started writing it in 2005.
Okay.
So it's now 15 years ago when I first started it.
And what made you revisit it?
So I originally wrote it as the piece that I had to write for the MA in writing at Hallam, and I finished it and then got a mark which was not fantastic. But,
jokes on them.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, they were right. It was rubbish at that point.
Right.
That's when I put it away. Also, about the same time, my father died, and so it kind of knocked me for a while. And there was a year or two where writing became very much sort of a secondary thing I did.
Sure.
So it went away. It definitely went away in a drawer at that point, but it was probably for a year or two.
Okay.
And then I wrote something else, and then I can't remember what made me dig it out, really. Possibly my friend, my good friend Susan Elliott-Wright, another good Sheffield author.
Yeah, she's on my hit list.
Yeah, she's fantastic. You should definitely have her on.
Yeah. She's going to be interviewing you at your various launches, isn't she?
Yeah.
Which I will tell you all about later in a sec.
And she kept saying to me, no, go back to it because it's brilliant. You really need to have another, sending it out again.
And were you on the course at the same time?
She finished a year or so before I started, but in that way of MAs that you kind of overlapped at functions and things. I think I met her at an evening do at some point.
I think that's such an integral part of the writing process, isn't it? To have someone...
You definitely need a network, which is great because that's part of what you're building here. And it's invaluable. I got that from the MA. More than anything, really, meeting other people and being able to talk about writing in a way that you don't get to with your friends and loved ones because they don't really understand it.
And they're like, how long does it take?
Yeah, they just keep saying, how's that book coming?
Yeah, oh, God.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress.
Like, obviously it's not finished because I would have told you.
So she encouraged me to dig it back out, which I did. And at that point, I did quite a hefty rewrite. And then another hefty rewrite. And I don't know, it was possibly because losing my dad about the same time, it became much more a story about fathers and sons and I think really then I understood what I was writing about. And often I always recommend to students, if you've got a big piece of work like that, it is useful to put it away. Perhaps not for 2 years, I wouldn't recommend that, but put it away for a few weeks at least, and then dig it out. And you can sometimes see it with a distance that you don't get to see it. You're too close to it,
aren't you?
Yeah.
Gosh, so I suppose in a way, such a negative and traumatic experience had a very positive impact on your work, would you say?
Yeah, not on a conscious level. No. I think it just evolved that way. But also, it's just one of those life experiences of many that you put into a book. It's something everyone goes through at some point, and it's about
the writing
channeling that and putting it in. And I suppose that's what you do as a writer. You put all your life experiences in different ways.
Burglarise your life.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited about reading it. But I mean, I've always been fascinated and deeply impressed by anyone that could write in this genre because of the complexity, the intricacy of those. I mean, obviously I haven't read your book, but I'm imagining that it is full of twists and turns. And
has a few, I don't think I realised. People keep describing it in reviews as very twisty.
I've read a lot of the twisty.
I don't think I realised it was that twisty until it was pointed out to me. I don't know. I suppose I've read a lot of things like that. I know the way crime fiction is supposed to work, and I get a lot of that. I did sort of naturally. I've tried not to think about it in too much detail, in case I lose the magic ability to do it.
Yeah, you don't want to overanalyze it. Although you do also say that you're an overthinker.
Yeah, very much so. But I'm being a bit disingenuous. It also takes a lot of planning and a lot of rewriting. So you write the first draft and it's nothing like that, and then you rewrite it and you decide to move a bit here, and you think, actually, it'd be better if I revealed that information at this point and to give the reader a bit more.
Are you one of those post-it note people?
Yeah. I have one wall of my living room that's pretty much constantly covered in post-it notes.
Gosh.
Yeah, not bits of string. I haven't got that far yet.
No.
I know some people do kind of elaborate murder scenes on their walls, but I haven't got to that stage yet.
Gosh, I don't think I'll ever get to that stage. But I live in hope. You mentioned, well, one of the things, I mean, you box sets, because obviously crime thriller, that sort of genre, police investigation, line of duty, all of that sort of stuff. Does that inform your work?
I'm sure it does at some level. I tend not to watch things like that when I'm in the heart of writing what I'm doing, because I don't want to be too influenced by what I'm watching.
Yeah.
So I watch a lot of all sorts of different things, not just crime,
but
box
eclectic.
sets, but all kinds of things.
What about?
But yeah, it does. I mean, you do, in terms of police procedure, I suppose I lent on what I'd seen on TV a lot to begin with.
But you had to research,
and then you do some research and find out that's not true, and then you have to bend it to fit what you want anyway. So.
Gosh, it sounds like sort of surgery, like literary surgery.
Yeah, I think I always describe it when it's at its worst. It's normally somewhere towards the end of the first draft, and it feels like you're kind of knitting with spaghetti. But like not cooked spaghetti, raw. Oh. No, sorry, not raw spaghetti, cooked spaghetti.
So
but
it's
like,
sort of clumpy
kind of like,
and stodgy, and just feels like it's a big mess.
Bits hanging out here, there, and everywhere, and then you have to go back and try and tidy it all up and make it make sense.
How do you motivate yourself to keep going when you've got stodgy spaghetti on your knitting needles?
I have some very good friends who motivate me and tell me when I'm being an idiot and getting too in my own head and saying I can't do this anymore. And
goodness for them.
Yeah, and then I don't know really. I think it's a bit like a compulsion. Mm-hmm. I speak to a lot of writers and they all say the same thing, which is at some point you've said to yourself, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore, and you walk away. But something always draws you back, and I think like that's the key thing. Yeah, and you just have to keep going.
When you say keep going, you've just finished the second one. What do you think? Have you got any ideas about what might be after the second one?
There's definitely a third one, which is in the planning stage at the minute, shall we say?
Gosh.
But yeah, it has the book has a thread that runs through these first three novels. So
is it a triptych or a series?
It is a series, and each one stands alone. But there's also a thread that you'll see when you read the first one. You'll know what I mean. You'll be chomping at the bit for the second one. Hopefully,
I can't wait for the first one. Should we just tell everyone when you're actually going to be launching and celebrating and talking about this book in live, real time? So we've got the 19th of February at Waterstones.
Yes, 19th February at Waterstones with a launch. And it, unfortunately, though, is sold out.
Oh, too popular.
Already sold out.
Good.
And then the following day in London. So if you're around about in London, I'm at a bookshop, little independent bookshop called Gaze the Word. in Bloomsbury. So I'm there on the 20th. And then the following week, and I can't remember the exact dates and times, but I'm doing 3 events with Sheffield Libraries.
Ecclesall, Crystal Peaks and...
Chapel Town.
That's right.
Yeah. So they're all on my website and
Central, the library website.
On the library website as well, yeah.
Okay.
So
and you'll be selling and signing books there, presumably?
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, good.
Hopefully, if you want one.
What was it like, the process of finding an agent and publisher? Was that difficult? Did that come with this book or prior to that?
Yeah, I think you know the answer to this. It's incredibly difficult. Yeah.
Well, that's actually good, because sometimes it's frustrating when people are like, no, just first one. You think?
No, it certainly wasn't the first one. It was maybe over the course of about 3 or 4 years. I was sending things out, getting rejections, very nicely worded rejections, saying how great a writer I am. This isn't quite what we wanted, or the time's not right, or all sorts of things. At the end of the day, they just, whatever they tell you, the real reason is they just didn't love it enough. Yeah. And there's no way around that. You can't change their mind.
How do you deal with that rejection? Is it the friends again?
Yeah, crying.
Yeah, crying.
Drinking.
House. Yeah.
No, I'm not recommending
friends.
that.
No.
And just getting back on with it and sending it out again and just keep sending it, and sooner or later. Also, within that space of time, I rewrote the book several times and made it better. And
where do you write? Is it the same place, or can you write anywhere?
I can write most places, I think. I do a lot of work in coffee shops because I quite like being out and about. It's my way of getting involved with people when I've had enough of being in my own head. But I have a desk at home which I sit and write at. That's usually when I'm redrafting. I need to be at the desk. When it's first draft and I'm creating, I prefer to be out, because you can't work for as long on a first draft. I can only work for an hour or two, and I run out of
energy.
Yeah.
It takes a lot out of you, doesn't it?
Yeah. Whereas when I'm redrafting words that are already there, I can keep going all day and sometimes forget what the time is and forget to eat and drink.
I never forget to eat, sadly. So you say that, you came to Sheffield, was it 25 years ago-ish?
It was. I first came to Sheffield in 95.
And what brought you here?
A uni. Came to uni. Studied media studies at Hallam University at Salter Lane, when there was a Salter Lane campus.
And then just stayed, because it was so much nicer and friendlier, you say, here, compared
definitely.
to Essex. And then...
Yeah, well, I don't really remember Essex. I was only born there, and
and
I was very young when we moved. But I grew up in Berkshire, and it's it's a strange place to be from. Not knocking Berkshire, it's lovely, but
just not for you. Just felt more at home here.
Yeah, I like being in a city. I grew up in a tiny little village, and it was hard to get around. Yeah, So I much prefer the city.
And what's your favourite thing about the city? Your favourite secret place about the city? Which I have to quiz you on, because I've never heard of it before.
So I can't remember what I put now.
The Cholera Monument.
Oh yes, yeah. Have you not been up there?
Well, maybe I have, but maybe I just didn't know it was called the Cholera Monument.
So on the hill.
My producer's looking at me like I'm completely insane now.
On the hill behind the station, very easy. You'll spot it as soon as you look up there. You'll see it. There's a little statue, little monument to all the victims of the cholera epidemic that hit in, I'll not remember the date, but a while back. And it's a nice little park. It's very quiet. Hardly anyone ever goes there, and it's got the best view across Sheffield. I love sitting on the bench and looking at that.
Right, I'm going to give that
when the weather's good. It's nice when it's bad.
It's less good in the drizzle. So if you were to change anything about Sheffield, you've talked here about we need to think hard about what we want our cities to be in the future. And you very sweetly cited, it's great that things are beginning to get renovated, like Commune, which is based on the ground floor and Kurious Arts. What else would you like to see? Like, what do you think we should be, our vision for the future of cities should be?
I think there have to be things like this that bring people together, give people a place to interact, because they're not necessarily shopping centres anymore. People are getting that, scratching that itch, I should say.
Itching that scratch.
On the internet. And so we've got to give people another reason to be using those spaces, whether that means
becoming an ideas factory. That's much more exciting, isn't it, than trainers?
Yeah, definitely. But also people living here and working in the centre. I think that's all part of it too. Parks and recreation.
I like your idea of pedestrianising the centre.
Yeah, I don't think that will go down well with most people, but
it goes down well with me.
Given that I don't drive, well, I can drive, but I choose not to drive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love the city centre to be pedestrianised.
So relaxing, wouldn't it? Okay, I just want to ask you. Well, yeah, I want you to tell people where they can find out more info. So if you want to give us your website and Twitter handle. But before you do that, I'm just going to leave you with this thought, everyone, that a question I ask people is what had you forgotten until just now? And Russ said, for every person on Earth, there are 17 million flies.
Sobering thought, isn't it?
Is that true?
I gather so, yeah. I think, I can't remember where I heard it originally, but I had to look it up online to check the exact number, and that's what came up. Yeah.
Gosh, it's shocking.
Yeah, it puts you in perspective, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It really, really does. Well, I'm sorry that I've ended us on flies, but
that's my fault.
No,
it's the crime writer in me, I guess.
Yeah. Good. You leave us with an unusual little tidbit. Well, I'm very much looking forward to the launch. And
thank you.
For those who want to hear more, Russ, what is your email? Not your email address. No,
I won't give that out.
Your web address.
The website is russthomasauthor.com, and you can also follow me at The Voice of Russ on most social media platforms.
Brilliant. Russ, thank you so much for talking to me. I can't wait to read the book.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
A Kurious Arts production.